Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Welcome to another Ask the Cheeseman. This is where you can ask all of your home cheese making questions. And we've got a new member. That's fantastic. Thank you, Patricia. Really appreciate your YouTube membership. Now, before we start, this is episode 95, which is, well, I never thought I'd get to 95 episodes of Ask the Cheeseman, I'll tell you that. But yeah, all pretty good. So I'm quite happy with that. Shout outs this morning. We have shout outs. I better put Patricia on the list. So shout outs this morning. Shout out to Alex via Demonte. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've seen Alex in the chat actually. He's a new YouTube member. Thank you very much for your membership, Alex. On Patreon, Sam Wilkinson. Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate it. I'll be sending through your reward for your tier, which is a copy of the, I think it's the cheddar recipe for your tier. That's fantastic. Thank you, Sam. And Patricia just joined, brand new member. Thank you, Patricia Gauchi. I think that's how you pronounce it. Did I get it right? You'll have to tell me, Patricia. So, videos in the pipeline. You would have seen Borson being released, which was pretty cool. Really simple little cheese. I really enjoyed making that one. The flavour was just out of this world. We've got a little bit left, just a little bit. It keeps for about 14 days, but it's because there was a fair bit of moisture in it, it kind of flattened a little bit. Just a little bit. We've got it in a container in the fridge. We're just using it mainly as a spread at the moment, so delicious little cheese. So give Borson a go if you're into that style of cheese. So yeah, really good fun. Also, the same day I was making the Borson, I tried to make cottage cheese again. Now I don't remember if I mentioned this last week, but it didn't work again. So I do have some footage. I do want to show you what went wrong. This is the third recipe that I've used to make cottage cheese that hasn't worked. So let's just say that cottage cheese is kind of like my nemesis. My nemesis cheese. Nice. It's the Moriarty to my Sherlock Holmes. What else? There is a Keep Calm and Eat Cheese video this week as well. It's a local cheese here made in Melbourne called Formaggino, which I think just means cheese, but it was quite nice. It recommended that it was served with balsamic vinegar and olive oil, and it really did enhance the flavour. It was really, really nice. Okay, so that'll be coming out, I think it's tomorrow, maybe the day after. I've got it scheduled, so it'll just get released automatically. And finally, Super Chat, of course. Anybody got any burning questions? Last week the chat was crazy, and I didn't get to about 25% of the questions. So if you really want your question answered, then at the bottom of the little chat, there's a little $sign. It's not on this one. This is special. There's a $sign down the bottom, and you can send a super chat with your comment in the super chat, and that'll be cool. Okay, so we've got lots of questions this week. I'm not going to do hellos because I'll be here forever. But hello to everybody in the stream. I really do appreciate you turning up and asking your questions. Okay. First question was from Paul, and Paul is a patron, I believe. Yes, he is. Hi, Gavin. Why do you think your Limburger was milder and not as creamy as your brick cheese? Even though the Limburger used 4 times the Brevibacteria linens, which cheese did you enjoy more? The Limburger, yeah, was really mild, and I don't quite know what happened there. I washed it just as frequently as the brick cheese, although I did enjoy the flavour of the brick cheese a lot better. And the brick cheese did smell a lot. What I've learnt since, Paul and everybody else watching, is that Brevibacteria linens in the freeze-dried format that it comes in has a short shelf life. It doesn't last as long as normal starter cultures. So I think there might have been some culture issues, or it's a ripening culture, so we can call it that. There might have been some death in the family as far as Brevibacteria linens goes. So I'm going to use a fresh packet next time. That could have been the issue. I cannot remember between the two recipes whether with the Limburger I did a Brevibacterian linens wash. Not sure if that was in the recipe, but I do remember in the brick cheese I had to make up a special wash of bee linens and wash that for 3 days to get the bloom happening on the outside of the red smear. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, the other differences between the cheese, they were fairly similar. I do remember the Limburger was a little bit flatter because it had a lot more moisture than what the brick cheese did. Okay, cool. And welcome again to Patricia. And she says, I got my pronunciation correct, which was great. Gouchy rhymes with... What? Gouchy rhymes with grouchy. Oh, very good. I was close. Craig, g'day, Craig. How are you, mate? Gavin, my raclette has really good colour, but boy, it's pretty whiffy. Anyway, it is. It's very smelly. In a good way. I still have it maturing in a maturing container in the cave, but wondering at any stage, did you cryovac yours? Yes. When Craig had started to get infected with a blue mold, and I don't know why, because it was fairly moist all the time. So I think at about 6 weeks, I think I vacuum packed it, and it was fine. The mold stayed there, and there was no issues. So I didn't want it to get infected any further than anything with any other molds. I really wanted it to stay red or orange, as the colour is, and it was fine. So you could do that, and there wouldn't be any issues with the cheese. It really did turn out really well. Carol says, hi, Gavin. How can I control humidity in my cheese cave, please? I'm maintaining the temperature. I made a cheese cave out of my old refrigerator. 2 schools of thought, Carol. The one I mainly use is I use ripening boxes to control the humidity. So I put the cheese in their own little vessel, and if I need the humidity to be about 80%, I just leave a little bit of moisture in the bottom that sits under the mat that's expelled out of the cheese. If I need it about 90% relative humidity, I get a damp cloth, just a Chuck's wipe, dishcloth, whatever, clean one, of course, that's been boiled, and then that's moist with water from the tap, and that sits underneath the mat, and that raises the humidity in the box as well. Just make sure that a couple of times a week, because the humidity is so high that moisture sits on the top of the box, and if it gets too much moisture, it drips down onto the cheese, and you get these damp spots, which then encourage really bad mold growth. So yeah, you need to watch for that. But that's one way. The other way is to buy a humidifier. You can buy humidifiers, just fill them up with water, and they just spray a mist into the cheese cave, and that usually gets the humidity up to about 90-95%. But remember, if you're going to make different types of cheese, different types of mold-ripened cheeses, then you're going to have an issue, because they're going to cross-contaminate each other So that's why I stick to ripening boxes, because that way I can have a blue running at the same time as a red washed rind cheese, as same time as I've got a white mold cheese, and they don't get cross-contaminated, and they're perfectly safe in their own little environments. So that's the best way I find, anyway. Thanks for your question. Patricia says, hey, Gavin, would you like to try making Huntsman cheese? Video at Northeast New England Cheesemaking, which appears to be Stilton encased in double Gloucester. I'll just write that one down, Patricia. I'm always on the search for new cheeses. Huntsman's cheese, New England. Right, I'll check that recipe out. I haven't been having much luck with the recipes from New England Cheesemaking Supply. Well, the Stilton was a classic example. I used the recipe from the new revision of Ricky Carroll's book. I think it's edition 4 now, and that's where I got the Stilton recipe from, which was exactly the same as the version on the website. So, yeah, I don't know. I need pictures. That's just me. Hannah says, hello, Gavin. I'm a beginner cheesemaker. I just saw your video on how to make cheddar cheese. Is it normal to get mold on your cheese? Is it normal? Yeah. If not, is there a way to prevent it? No, mold just grows, especially on those type of cheese, cloth banded cheeses. Go online, have a look. There's videos made by companies, proper cheese companies in Somerset in England. Have a look at the final cloth banded cheddar. You will see there's some mold, I tell you. Yeah, it's supposed to get mold on the outside. It's better if you use lard or butter than coconut oil. Coconut oil does inhibit naturally mold growth, but probably not so much in my case. It's started to get some funky molds on it. But lard and butter actually do a better job at inhibiting mold growth on the outside of your cloth banding. Now, if you're worried about that sort of thing with your cheddar, simply wax or vacuum pack it after it's touch dry, after it's come out of the press. Make sure it is touch dry, because you don't want moisture building up in the wax or in the vacuum packing. So, where else? Chris has a question, I think. Here we are. Hi, Gavin. Are there any viable options if you don't have a cheese press but want to make a hard cheese, like Gouda or Comté? Is it possible to press the cheese in a strainer colander with a weight placed on top? Indeed it is. Before cheese presses were invented, I suppose that's how they used to do it. Get a big rock and shove it on top of your cheese, put a bowl on top of a bowl so it fits, and away you go. So, yeah, definitely, there's heaps. I've actually got there's a video. I'm not sure if Kim's there. Of course she is. Do-it-yourself cheese presses. So if you could find the link to that video, Kim, that'd be lovely, and pop it up there for Chris. And you can see all these homemade cheese presses that I featured in a video from one of the larger cheese-making Facebook groups called Learn to Make Cheese. It's really good, very active cheese-making group on Facebook. And yeah, they supplied a lot of the photos and descriptions of the different cheese-making presses that people have made. It's just amazing. Some are so simple it's criminal, and they work like a treat. Lisa says, hi, Gavin. I made cheddar, mozzarella, and Emmental. My cheddar and mozzarella won't melt. Can you give me any tips to help with getting it to melt? Yeah, so melting has something to do with the amount of acid that's in the cheese. I'm quite amazed that if you've made mozzarella and it hasn't stretched, because stretching is part of the melting process, that it doesn't melt at all. So very surprised there that you managed to make mozzarella without it melting. Seeing the integral part of the process is the stretching part before you form it into a ball or what have you. Same as the cheddar. Doesn't seem like the acidity's high enough. That's why it won't melt. Certainly the fat content can sometimes have something to do. If you've pressed out too much fat during the pressing process with cheddars, they won't melt as well. But there's a few tips. It sounds like the pH is not high enough before you press the cheese or form the cheese. Steve says, "Hi Gavin, I'm trying to understand the effect of stirring curds and heating them to 104 Fahrenheit. Does the curd size and its long hot bath impact the texture of the cheese, crumbly versus soft?" 104. Convert 104 Fahrenheit to Celsius.
That would be 40 degrees Celsius.
Right, so 40 degrees Celsius, yes. So it depends on the cheese, Steve, of course. All cheeses have different temperatures and all that sort of stuff. So it depends on what you're trying to make there. So let me think. I'll start again. It's not so much the temperature, it's the amount of whey that's left in the curds. The curd size definitely affects whether it's crumbly or soft. The larger the curd size, the more whey that's trapped inside the curds, and the softer the cheese is going to be. The smaller the curd size impacts the amount of whey that's left behind. Also, pressing time has a lot to do with whether the cheese turns out crumbly or soft as well. You'll notice a lot of the soft European cheeses like Edam, Gouda, Havarti, all very low pressing weights, and hence they tend to be a lot softer than, say, cheddar, which has a very heavy pressing weight and tends to be more crumbly. So it's pressing as well as curd size that affects the texture of the cheeses. Okay, Paul says, "Big G Dog, how's it going in life?" Well, pretty good. I won't go into too many details, but I don't know if you're on last week's stream, but my son Ben hasn't been too well after some surgery. He got diagnosed with a DVT, deep vein thrombosis, and been going through a bit of heartache there. But he's on the other side now, so he's walking and all that sort of stuff, so it's really good. So Kim and I are very pleased. Thanks for asking, Paul. Rudy says, "Hey Gavin, is there such thing as a lemon pepper jack cheese or anything like that?" Not that I know of, but it doesn't mean that you can't make one, Rudy. I couldn't see why you couldn't make a lemon pepper jack cheese. The lemon, remember that lemon pepper that it comes from the supermarket normally tends to be citric acid, in the form of citric acid, the lemon flavour. Now that'll acidify the cheese higher and make it tend to go a little bit crumbly as well. You may find that your jack cheese, when you're finished with it, is quite crumbly. Now you would mix the lemon pepper flavouring in at the milling stage. At the same time you add the salt. So just make sure that lemon pepper doesn't have salt added to it as well. And if it does, take that into account. Subtract that from your salt allowance that you mix through. So that's how you do it, I think. Chris says, "Hi Gavin, I've been watching your videos for a while and finally ordered a basic kit to get myself started. Thanks for the great videos." Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, mate. Kevin, did you realise that when you did your taste test for Borson, you said you were in heaven and you were wearing the blessed blessed are the cheesemaker shirt? No, I did not realise that, but very, very cool. Good pickup. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it, as always. Swifton, good morning, Gavin. Keep up the good work. I may have the opportunity to get a small cool room about 1.2 square meters in size, proper cool room compressor. Would it make an excellent cheese cave? It would, if you can control the temperature by using some sort of thermostat. It must have a thermostat. Most of those cool rooms do. And if you can get it up to about 13 degrees Celsius, spot on. It's a good temperature to sit at for most cheeses. So yeah, and when you do get that room, then line it with pine boards and have your cheese sitting on the pine boards, as they do in many normal cheese caves throughout the world. So the taste is better and the whey drains off through the wood. and that sort of stuff. And wash your pine boards with a brine solution after you're finished. So yeah, and the humidity, you'd have to probably get a humidifier in there to get the humidity up for the whole room, or just use ripening boxes. Either way. Lewis says, "Good day, everybody." Good day, Lewis. Drew says, "I made camembert following your recipe. I tried one at 2 weeks and the outer paste was runny and the inner was firm. I left one for 3 weeks and it was runny. How do I get a firmer, consistent paste?" Well, there's two ways of doing this. Commercial cheesemakers have been doing it for a while. But remember that real camembert from Normandy is very, very runny. I don't know if anybody knows that as a fact. So we've probably been spoilt, or not spoilt, tricked, I suppose, by commercial cheesemakers that actually make a thing called a stabilised paste. And what they do is, instead of using a mesophilic starter culture, they use a thermophilic starter culture, and it actually firms up the paste of the cheese and the ripening. It doesn't go runny kind of on the outside. Another method they use is still use a mesophilic or aromatic mesophilic starter culture when they're making the camembert, and they wash the curds. So they lower the acidity, overall acidity of the curds, because it's that acidity that speeds up the Penicillium candidum or Camberti mold on the outside. So the lower the acidity, the slower that develops as well. So there you go. There's a couple of ways to fix that up. There's a very good book by Gianniclis Caldwell. I think it's How to Make Artisan Cheese, something like that. Just go and check it out on Amazon. And she's got a very good description around the camembert process. It's fairly technical, but there's actually a recipe there for stabilized paste camembert or mold ripened cheeses. So you can go check that out. Igor says, "For washed rind cheese, if using beer or wine, would you mix it with a small amount of salt, or would you wash straight with the liquid?" Yeah, I would actually add a little bit of salt. That helps preserve it. But yeah, you could, or I've actually seen people use a just straight up beer or wine as the wash. But I think a little bit of salt would probably help as well. I have seen salt added to beer or wine washes. Paul says, "I see varied wax temperatures for cheeses in several cheese videos from 75 to 92. Do different cheeses get different wax temperatures? Which temperature is best? I've also seen a vinegar washed used before waxing." Yeah, so look, as long as the wax is over pasteurization temperature, which is 73 Celsius, if I remember rightly, for normal pasteurization. Not home pasteurization is about 63 Celsius. But look, as long as it doesn't go over 100, because you're going to, what the wax does, it does two things. So it kills off any yeasts and molds on the surface of the cheese by itself by the temperature of the wax. That's what it does. And then it obviously seals it and excludes oxygen from getting into the cheese. So the temperatures, that's fine. That variation between 75 to 92, it's okay. It's no big deal. I actually err on the lower side, so around 75 to 80. Roughly, I heat the wax up too. I make sure I use a thermometer, make sure it doesn't get too hot. I just don't want it smoking and burning. And when you dip the cheese in, it starts to crackle or anything like that. You don't need it that hot. You really don't. Yes, I've also used a brine and vinegar solution to wash the outside of the cheese if and only if there's been some mold growth, because I don't want that mold growth to continue underneath the wax. So that's what I've done before, Paul. Okay. Alex says, "What do I use if one specific culture is not available for a specific cheese?" Well, you got two choices, Alex. Don't make it, or substitute it for a different style of mesophilic. You'll get a different variation in taste, of course, but each cheese you make is a unique cheese. It doesn't have to exactly follow or taste like the ones in the shop. That's the beauty of home cheese making. You can make anything you like and the flavors will be amazing. Just make sure you document what you do Because if you get a serendipitous event and the cheese tastes amazing, you'll never be able to replicate it again. So make sure you write down exactly what you put into your cheese as you're making it. If you're following a recipe, that's fine. All my recipe books have got pencil all over them where I change them. And they're the recipes that I present to you guys and girls. So, yeah, the specific cultures, not so much of an issue. Mesophilic, thermophilic. There are variations, of course. There's lots of variations. But for home cheesemakers, it doesn't really matter unless you're starting a commercial operation. Rightio, where'd we get up to? Hey, Kim's been deleting people left, right, and centre. Righto. I'm way out. Right, here we are. I'm way behind. I'm only 6 minutes into it and it's half an hour into the stream. Like I said before, if you've got anything any burning questions, because I don't know if I'll get to them all, then do a super chat and I'll get to that straight away. Lice Dog says, "Hi Gavin, awesome Borson video. I think it's pronounced. I was corrected today. Buarson or Son or something like that. Anyway, I'll call it Borson. Thanks. You should try to make Gaperon or Charus. I think that's how you pronounce it. I made Havarti 3 weeks ago, and I keep getting Geotrichum, Brevilectin, and blue every 2 or 3 days. Is that normal? Depends on how infected your cheese cave is. But yes, I've seen it. Havarti's a very moist cheese, very high moisture content. It could do with waxing or vac packing, I think, as well. I might try it again another time because it did take a lot to keep those molds off the cheese. But the flavour is amazing once you get it going. Mad Welshie 94 says, "Gavin, shout out. It's my birthday. Could you recommend a great birthday cheese?" Happy birthday, Mad Welshie. A birthday cheese. Well, depends on where you're from and what you can get. Look, I would go with whatever your favourite is, personally. On my birthday, I have a cheese platter and eat all the different types of cheeses. Why wouldn't you? Life's too short to have just one cheese. Many cheeses. There's over 3,000 different types of cheeses in the world. Go for it. Try as many as you want. If you don't like it, it's no big deal. Go feed it to the chickens. Don't feed it to the dogs. Their stomachs don't like it. Okay, Lewis says, "Hey Gavin, is it normal to have some grey spots on Gruyere?" Been washing it with a brine for about a month now. Oh yeah, Gruyere loves brown and grey spots. It certainly does. If you have a look at the surface of a commercial made Gruyere, it is actually browny grey around the whole outside of the rind, and that's what happens when you keep washing the Gruyere. The rind thickens, it gets this earthy flavour to it, really earthy and quite nice. Kevin says, "Can you use soured cream instead of creme fraiche in those cheeses that need it?" I think sour cream a little bit too tart. Possibly. Look, give it a go. Look, I haven't tried it. First time I ever made Borson was the one I showed you guys. Creme fraiche, very, very subtle. You could taste that it was cultured, but very, very subtle flavour. And it was a little bit thicker than normal cream anyway. Sour cream, very strong. Probably would actually curdle the milk a little bit because it's got a higher acid content. So that's just my thoughts on that. Probably work, Kevin. May curdle the cheese a little bit earlier than expected. Nicole says, "How much cheese is too much to eat in a day?" Well, how much cheese? Well, I'd recommend a daily allowance for a piece of cheese is 25 grams. Kim's just asked me a question. Hang on, I'll just find this book that I was talking about. If I can find it. Oh, okay. So the one I was talking about, the camembert and the paste and all that sort of stuff, the stabilised paste, I've got the book here. I'll put it that side. So it's Mastering Artisan Cheese by Giannicholas Caldwell. I'm going to put an Amazon link where I get an affiliate payment. Sorry for looking at my back. I'm just looking at the screen. It's a bit of a delay. But yeah, it was my lovely back where I found the cheese book. But yeah, great book. There are so many different styles of cheese and the details, very technical. But if you like that sort of book, it's not cheap, mind you. So yeah, very good book, Mastering Artisan Cheesemaking. We may have some in store, I'm not sure. We may be sold out too. But yeah, very good book. Okay. So you'll find a stabilised paste one in there. Alex says, can I add more rennet or calcium chloride to counteract for the curds never setting using the correct milk? So the problem, Alex, is that if you add more rennet and calcium chloride than is specified, and it all depends on the strength of your rennet too, both of those are bittering agents, and they tend, if you use too much, to bitter the cheese. They really do. So you have to then age the cheese a lot longer to get rid of the bitterness, which is caused by pepsins, they're called. So yeah, I'd test the strength of your rennet. Make sure that you know how many IMCU it is before you use it. That's probably the best way to do it. And usually you add the same amount of calcium chloride as you do rennet. Kevin said, made Gruyere and it was very crumbly. Left it for a couple more months and it cross-contaminated with a Brevi cheese. I think I now have a pink Gruyere with a texture of a camembert. What can I call this? Whatever you like. It's pink. Oh, well, it was crumbly, but then it has a texture of a camembert. That won't be crumbly then. Weird. I don't know. I'm sure people in the chat will be able to figure out and give it a name. SW says, are there any rennet alternatives which can be stored at room temperature? Yeah, Mad Millie make a product called their tablet rennet, and that's shelf stable. It's very, very low IMCU. I think it's 60 IMCU per tablet. So each tablet can coagulate 4 litres of milk. So yeah, Mad Millie make a product that is shelf stable that you don't need to keep in the freezer. So you can check that out. We've actually got some in store, so I don't know if Kim wants to put the link in. If she can find the Mad Millie tablets, that'll be cool. Jackson, the N, says, hey, Gav. Hey, Jackson. Patricia says, if you save the Penicillium Roque 40 scrapings from the outside of blue cheese, can it be used for future blues? Would it be the same measurement as commercially bought Penicillium Roque 40? Yes, you can. You can save that, freeze it. Once you've saved it, it'll be very strong. However, if you got any cross-contamination in around the outside of your cheese, and remember, lots and lots of blue cheeses get all sorts of funky molds on them, which is one of the reasons we scrape it off before we serve it up. But if you've got a pure blend and you reckon that there's no other contamination, then yeah, you can keep the scrapings. Pop them in a little sample jar or something similar to this and pop it in the freezer until next time you make a blue cheese. And add it in. I'd probably add in about half a teaspoon of those scrapings to help inoculate the milk. So that would work, Patricia. I've seen it done, that's for sure. Haven't personally done it myself, because I always like to start with a fresh culture, just to make sure that they work first time, because when I make the cheese for the first time, I video it. If it works, then I show it. Saves double handling. Nelson says, greets, Gavin. Good to see you again. Good to see you, Nelson. Daxian says, have you ever made deep fried breaded cheese curds? No, I haven't. Because the cheese curds we get here in Australia, well, we don't. We don't get cheese curds here in Australia. We have to make them ourselves. So by the time we finished eating our squeaky cheese curds, there's none left to fry them. So no, I never have, unfortunately. Rima says, hi, Rima. Kevin has another question. My raclette has been in backpack for 3 months now, and it has flattened out completely and looks like a liquid in a vac pack, but still tastes great. A lot, very high moisture content by the sounds of it. My raclette didn't have that issue, and I made another one, and that didn't have an issue either. So may have been a little bit too much moisture in there, Kevin. Kim's popped in the link for the cheese presses. Thanks, Kim. You would have seen that like ages ago. National Crafter says, what's the best way to get into making your own cheese? Well, I've got a treat for you. There's a course. I wrote a course. I've been teaching cheese making since about, oh, goodness me. My first YouTube video was in 2010. But actually, sorry, hang on, it's water. My first class was around about 2011, I think, where I taught people how to make mozzarella at home. But the best way I got into cheese making was I went on a course. Now I have fully I've changed my course into an online one and added a whole bunch more cheeses and actually a whole bunch more material that is extremely hard to deliver in a 5-hour course. So you can actually go to courses.littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and I think the link's down below anyway in the description. And you'll find my cheese making course, and you can go on it and learn all things cheesy. That's probably a great way to get into home cheese making, or otherwise get a really good book. If you're into books, and you can figure it out from there. And other than that, watch as many cheese making videos as you can on the channel, and that'll help immensely, I think. Daxian says, I live in Wisconsin. We love our cheese here in the dairy state. My grandma literally has an entire drawer in her fridge dedicated to cheese. Love the channel. Thanks, Daxian. I've got an entire drawer in my cheese. In fact, a whole shelf in my normal kitchen fridge that's just covered in cheese. Bob says lemon basil has a lemony flavour. Yes, it does. Okay. Perinath22, bonjour, Gavin. Just a little message from France. Breta, oh, I can't pronounce that. Sorry, mate. I don't want to crucify the name. Love your videos. Thank you. Have a good day. It's time for me to go sleeping. Yeah, sorry it's so late in Europe. Kim and I have been thinking of maybe moving, even though we started at 9 o'clock our time this morning. Normally we start at 9:30, but because the clocks have all changed, Europe and the UK, where a lot of viewers come from, it's past midnight. So we're thinking of maybe bringing it half an hour earlier, maybe start at 8:30. But you'll see that in the scheduled time when I schedule next week's one, and we'll see where we go from there. Kevin says, how are you feeling after using the CPAC for a few months now? I've been using one for 4 years, and it changed my life for the better. I tell you what, Kevin, it's fantastic. I get a full night's sleep. I wish I could lose a little bit of weight, but that'll probably help too. But the CPAP really has helped. I wake up fresh every morning. I wake up after 7 hours sleep. I don't feel tired at all. It's absolutely fantastic. No headaches. Or if I do have a headache during the day from, the new daily persistent headache syndrome thing I had, they're very minor, so I can manage them with paracetamol. There's no issues. But yeah, it's really good. Bart says, G'day, A from Winnipeg, Canada. Thanks so much for making the Borson cheese. Gonna give that one a go. Keep up the cheesy work. You're most welcome, Bart. And Kim's deleted people because they've been naughty. JT says, I live in Arizona. Too darn hot here. I would love to have a cool room, something to age ham, salami, and cheese. Yeah, or just cheese, or just a fridge. Get a fairly long fridge, then you'll be able to make your salamis. And when the salamis aren't in there, you can put cheese in there. Honest Reviews says, hey Gavin, I really appreciate your channel. I'd like to try cheese making, but have never done it. 2 questions. 1, do I have to have a small refrigerator? 2, can I build my own cheese press? The answer to question 1 is no, you don't need a small refrigerator. Just don't make cheeses that you need to age. There are many, many cheeses that you can make without a fridge. In fact, there's a video I made where I listed about 10 cheeses that you don't need a cheese fridge for. So you can make cheese, most definitely. And you can search that through the channel, go and find it, beginner's cheeses without a cheese fridge. Can you build your own cheese press? Definitely. I don't know if Kim's put the link up where I asked her to. I can't see it. Mind you, I've just skipped ahead 1,000. To find the video link for that do-it-yourself cheese presses, you could search the channel. It'll be there. And there are so many people made their own cheese presses. And if you go on the internet, there are actually instructions how to make your own cheese presses. Pretty simple. Rima, speaking in French that I don't understand. Sorry, Rima. Something about fromage. Looks pretty cool. Sorry, mate, I'm not translating today. Kevin. G'day, Kevin. How are you? G'day, buddy. Kitty Cats from Perth. How are you, Kitty Cats? Haven't seen you so long. Hi, Gavin and Kim. Yay, daylight savings is finished. Indeed. Fantastic. And Kim said the same thing. Kevin says, what can you do with kefir? Good question. You can do a lot with kefir because it has naturally occurring thermophilic or streptococcus. I can remember ST, streptococcus. That's a thermophilic starter culture. It also has some mesophilic starter cultures in there as well in the kefir grains. And it also has Geotrichum candidum, which lurks on the crystals as well. So you can do a lot. There's a whole book dedicated to it. Just see if I can find it. Excuse my back again. Where the heck is he? Another book recommendation. Right, this one here by David Asher. The Art of Natural Cheesemaking. What else does it say on there? Using traditional non-industrial methods and raw ingredients to make the world's best cheeses. He exclusively uses kefir grains for quite a few of his cheeses. Quite a good book. You can go and check it. I think we might have some in store as well. So have a look at that. If you can't find it in our store, then check it out on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below for after the show. So another good book by David Asher. Okay. JT says, I like soft cheeses that are runny. I like all cheeses, JT. Swifton says, good morning, Kim. Don't know how you keep up with us all. Are you obsessed with cheese as Gavin? I'd like to see what she says. Let's have a look. I'll go down further. Swifton, I do like most of the cheeses. Oh, well done, honey. Right answer. Okay. The Holy Toast says, my sister just had heart surgery. Is there any cheese that I can make without salt that won't taste like the butt end of a yak? Without salt. Salt's integral to cheese making, unfortunately. You can't replace it with that pretend salt either. It doesn't work. It just goes bitter. Stick to fresh cheeses. I made a cream cheese the other day, which you'll see in a video coming up. It was supposed to be a cottage cheese. And it was unsalted. And the flavour was great. Really nice, creamy texture, tart, fantastic on toast. It'd be perfect. So, yeah, something like that. That'd be cool. Accent Fact says, Kim, can you write the book? Okay, I hope I showed you the book. So that's cool. Kevin says, beer cheese, us delicious. Beer cheese would be delicious. I'll have to make some. Washed. Or maybe even, I've seen a lot of beer cheese recipes, so I'll have to have a look. I've got some beer. I have beer. JT, my sister lives in Alta. She makes cheese with truffles in it. It's wonderful stuff. Yeah, truffles very expensive. But yeah, it does make a nice cheese. The book is out of stock at the moment. Oh, sorry about that. Rebecca, can you explain the theory behind waxing backpacking cheese? Some recipes call for waxing after 2 days. Some say don't wax your cheeses until it's done aging. Does waxing halt the aging process? No, it doesn't really. A lot of people say that the exclusion of air stops the cheese from aging. That's incorrect. What happens is that the starter cultures, when they kind of run out of lactose to consume and convert it into lactic acid, or when you hit it with salt, they kind of stop converting. And what happens then? They die. So when they die, they create enzymes which then break down the fats, which is called lipolysis, and break down the proteins, which is called proteolysis. So those two chemical reactions that happen with the enzymes left over from the starter cultures create the flavors in the cheese. Now, they don't need oxygen to do that. And it happens inside the cheese, which is pretty cool. It's just a living organism. It's just amazing. So some recipes, when they call for waxing after 2 or 2 days, it's actually when they're touch dry. So when they're dry on the surface, that's when you wax them. If your cheese is still moist after 2 days, all that's going to happen is when you wax it or backpack it, it's going to build up all this moisture and it's going to be terrible. And the taste is going to be horrible. It'll turn the cheese crumbly during aging and all that sort of stuff. When you don't wax cheeses, you're trying to develop a natural rind, is what you're trying to do. So basically, there's a reason. There's a reason why. And usually it's because you need to wash the rind of the cheese with a brine solution or keep the mold off, or to create a thick rind on the cheese. If you wax your cheese, it holds in a lot more moisture. If you don't wax it, it makes the cheese drier. So there's reasons why. But it certainly doesn't halt the aging process whatsoever. Kevin says, Gavin, the crumbly Gruyere goes to the consistency of Camembert because it was over-ripening. Oh, okay, cool. Acts and facts. My chickens are growing fat on my misfortunate cheeses. Yeah, mine do too. They get a little bit of extra special cheese that doesn't make it to the video, the channel. Nice but dim says, hello, where do I get a beginner's cheese kit to make, for example, Stilton or Brie? Well, we've got a very special cheese kit. It's called the Mad Millie Specialty Kit, which you can actually make blue cheese and white mold cheeses as well. And if Kim can find the link to that and pop it in, I know I'm about 20 minutes after the fact, but there's a good place to put it. Rebecca says, thank you for your videos. I love them. Thank you, Rebecca. Kim's put the link to the Mad Millie Rennet tablets. Thank you to Kim. Thomas says, new to cheese here. Do you have any videos on your cheese cave and how you properly age cheeses in it? Yeah, there is a video. There's a couple of videos around what's in my cheese fridge. Just go search the channel for that. So, Thomas, you'll find something there. Mike's Big Mouth says, hi, Gavin. Any advice for a beginner making mozzarella from a neighbourhood? Animal or vegetable rennet, love from Kenya. Any advice for a beginner making mozzarella from a neighbourhood? I think that might have missed something in the translation then. Yeah, look, I tried traditional mozzarella. Don't worry about quick mozzarella. Quick mozzarella's great, but it doesn't have the flavour that a traditional mozzarella does. Any type of rennet will be fine, animal or vegetable. They'll both work equally the same. The key to a good mozzarella is making sure that you reach the right pH level, and that's between 5 and 5.3. Otherwise, you won't be able to stretch the cheese at the end of the process. So it's all about adding the culture, cutting the curds, stirring them enough, and then waiting until the pH level gets to the right level, and then you can add it to hot water and stretch it. So there's some advice. Sea Bullet says, hi Gavin, just stopping by to tell you thanks for all the videos. My girlfriend and I love relaxing and watching them together. Keep it up. Got to head to work, but have a great stream. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Mike says, for a neighbourhood pizza place. Yeah, so my advice was right. So make traditional mozzarella. Make lots of it. You'll need it. CRN says, do you have an opinion on Dan Blue? No, because I haven't tasted it. They don't import it to Australia. Well, none that I've seen anyway. Okay. Anne says, interesting stuff. I love learning. Thanks. Me too. I reckon that if you don't learn something new every day, it's not worth being here, really. So, love it. Jovisha, I think that's how you say it. Hello from Serbia. I love your videos. Thank you. Kevin says, please update on book number 2. Not much action happening on book number 2. I don't think I've touched it since late January, Kevin, because of all the family issues we've been having here. I just haven't had time to concentrate on it. I'd rather keep the videos flowing to you guys, but definitely it's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere, and I'll get back into it once everything settles down around here. That's a great thing about a book. You can take as long as you like to write it. People will still read it, I think. Daxian says, I think Ben mentioned the lemon basil as a response to the lemon pepper. Yeah, that works. Patricia says, what did I use for my Borson moulds? Patricia, I just found them in a kitchen store ages and ages ago. They're just stainless steel tubes. I should have shown them. Sorry about that. Yeah, stainless steel tubes. And you make these potato things with them. You shove in mashed potato and then you cook them in the oven and you pull them out and they've got a crispy bit on the top and they look pretty cool. I don't know what they're called. I can't remember. Potato croquettes, maybe. But they are stainless steel rings that are about, I don't know, what's that? About that high. Stainless steel rings, and they're about the same width, maybe 8 centimetres across the top. And that's just what I use for the mould. That's all I had handy. I could have lined a small cheese mould. I've got some small cheese moulds that I use for really small goat's cheeses. Could have lined those with the paper. That would have been fine. Would have been a little bit more fiddly. But I found that the mould just slipped straight off for the Borsons. Just go and find them. They should be in a kitchen store somewhere. You should be able to find them. We've got a super chat going on here. Whoa, there's the Curd Nerd Lamp. It's all going on here. Hang on, let me... I'm trying to turn it off. My goodness. And let me find it. It's Chris B. G'day, Chris. Great to see you again. Chris and I have actually met in person. He came and bought some stuff from our shop, which is cool. Thanks, Chris. Hi, Gavin. I made a gouda, which seems to be affected by colostrum bacteria. Any suggestions on how to minimise this in the future? Yeah, so that means it was early blown. And there's your little gold star. That's cool, too. I like that. Yeah, look, that happens. It makes it early blown cheese, and you actually can't eat it. It's not very good. So a couple of ways you can get around it is pasteurization. If you were using raw milk and it happened, then that's what happened. Also, another thing that happens is if the animals are fed on silage because they're not fed on grass, that can also happen as well. And you can get that bacteria infecting the cheese, the milk, and then it blows, get an early blow on that as well. So there are a couple of ways to avoid that. So pasteurize your milk if you haven't already pasteurized it. And see if you can get a fresh source. Wintertime in most countries where it's really cold, very hard to do because the cows are put into big barns and they're fed silage. And it's very hard to find whether the cows have been fed on silage or not, because especially with unless you're getting a raw source of milk. So maybe that's how to do it. I've actually got a book that costs a lot of money. I don't have it here. It's in ebook format. It's called Cheese Problems Solved. And Chris, if you go join the Learn to Make Cheese group, there's actually a copy in the files, and there's a whole chapter on how to get rid of infections like Clostridium bacteria in your milk. So I hope that helps, mate. Anyway, we've got 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes. Right, where are we up to? Kim's put the list of the beginner's cheeses. That's great. No, you can make kefir. Can you? I didn't know that. I'll have to look. Cheese press is already in the chat. That's good. Kim's put the book. Thank you, Kim. Jordan, who's a member. Thank you, Jordan. Hello. I hate that I missed most of today's chat. You may have said that you were doing, how you were doing with your headaches and how's your son's recovery. Yeah, I did about 3-4 minutes ago before you joined, Jordan. It's all going good. Ben's on his feet again. My headaches are a lot less. In fact, sometimes they're not even there at all. And if they are there, paracetamol seems to get rid of them, which is good. Okay. Manel says, hello, Mrs. Gavin. I think must be talking to Kim. Hi, Mr. Gavin. I hope very good when you make Borson, you added heavy cream. Can I used UHT, heavy cream, ultra pasteurized, I think he's talking about. Yeah, I couldn't see why not. It's a fresh cheese, so it wouldn't really matter. So if you can, as long as you can whip it and make it a bit thicker than what it normally would be, then yep, no problems. You can add that to your Borson and it would taste fantastic. Swifton, can you use natural beeswax to wax cheese? I'm a hobby beekeeper, so have that type of cheese. I can assume just add colouring if I want to make it red. Yes, you can use cheese wax. Normally, I don't recommend beeswax. Normally, I don't recommend it because it's very expensive, and if you're not a beekeeper, then you can't get it. Don't add any colour because it'll just leach into your cheese. Just leave it natural, nice. What is it? It's like an off yellow ivory sort of colour. Sorry, a lot deeper, a bit yellowish, I suppose. And that works fine. Don't worry about the colour. It's just the functionality you're after, and the cheeses will taste fantastic. So, yes, you can. Thanks for that, but waiting for the response. Can't remember it. Sorry, mate. Kim's put the specialty cheese kit. We have to go. Kim's giving me the wind up. Sorry about that. Didn't get to the rest of them, as always. And thanks for the super chats. There was actually one by Ruth before the start of the show, 2 hours before the show. So big shout out to Ruth if she watches the rest of the show. Thanks very much. Kim says that you can visit our online store at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. There's links down below as well. You can support us via Patreon or via YouTube memberships. And there's a lot of people doing that. A lot of people in the chat today. They've got, on my chat anyway, green names with a picture of their cheese icon on how long they've been a member, which is very, very cool. Plus, you get early access to videos that I release, mainly the tutorial ones. And merch, if you want to buy merch like this one, whoop, Certified Curd Nerd t-shirts and many others. There's probably links down below under the video anyway. But you can go to teespring.com/cheeseman.tv and you can see all of the merch, including cups like this one with a picture of me sitting on a cheese chair. Very, very cool. And they work. They're functional. It's very good. Anyway, so that's it. We're going to wrap up now. Thank you so much. Oh, I have a podcast as well over at littlegreencheese.com. You can go there, listen to the podcast episodes, subscribe via your player, whatever, your phone, listen to your podcasts. All very cool. There's about 80 episodes, 85, I think, episodes there as well. I do about one a month, so yeah, you'll get informed. But thank you very much. Without you guys and girls, there would be no live chat, no questions. Wouldn't be asked, Cheeseman. Pretty cool that you all turn up every week. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And we will see you next week. Just check the video for the time. We may make it a little bit earlier so people in Europe and the UK can participate as well. We'll see how we go. But anyway, see you later.